Hi, everyone. Let's see. Normally I would say, can everybody hear me? Wave your hand, something like that, but yet we are on Zoom. Let us review. So thank you for joining us on such a gorgeous day. Delighted to see you. As Emily said, kind of the focus of this charter chat is to um, give people the opportunity to figure out how to activate their ideas. The CRC has begun to move into more formal conversations regarding the changes to the charter, kind of speaking concretely about ideas that are coming up. And we know we've heard from the regular participants on this call that there is an active interest in figuring out how to become more active in the charter review process. So that's what we want to build on. We started this in our last meeting, and we want to kind of take that platform and take it to the next step. We've got small group and large group discussions, and we're gonna cover specific topics of interest that have bubbled up across both the CRC process and our process. Provide information on how to bring ideas to the CRC, and cultivate an interest in kind of creating talking groups around this. We ask you bring your curiosity, your great ideas, listen with an open mind, and keep your eye on the clock so we can all talk. Basic Zoom etiquette is going to be our guide. I think at this point, this is about as common to us as table manners. Raise your hand to be recognized. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We can use the chat function for comments and questions. People phoning in won't be able to respond to those. We've got chat monitors that are going to be looking for common themes, and we'll do our best to get to everything. And with the caveat that we may not be able to. So in lieu of the usual round of introductions, I think you all have down at the bottom of your bar of participants, you'll see a couple of heads. You can see who all is on the who's joined us today. So but in lieu of kind of a round robin, welcome everyone, and you can check out who of your neighbors are here. So we are going, we've gone through the agenda. We're going to kind of do an overview of the CRC meeting that happened last Tuesday. We've got good trouble coming up, and then we'll have closing thoughts, and that good trouble will be those small group discussions. So why don't we move on to what happened at the last CRC? And I think we've got a slide on that. And look at that. There it is. In the last CRC meeting, they like I said, they got more concrete. They went through bits of the charter, chunks of the charter, Article 1, Article 2 primarily, and the Collins Center began to offer up concrete ideas around this, mostly related to balance of power. And then, there's some back and forth as people tried for, clarification. Let's see, CRC members remain curious. So I'm looking at the slide here, reading it. There was a poll at the end of it. I had left at that point that I think offered up some ideas on, kind of a sense of where the town managers were. What I would like to do at this point is just, there's a preamble committee starting on February 22nd. There's a communication subcommittee. There has been funding approved for a print piece. There's a charter FAQ that's been created by Ann Fitzpatrick, one of the CRC members. And there was some effort to get folks to declare what form of government they were favoring. There was that straw poll at the end of the CRC. And I think the results are on the next slide. So this is when they did who's in favor of a town manager and who's in favor of a mayor. You see some clear views on town manager: Angie, Kenny, Leo, Jimmy, Mark, and Vinny. And then a bunch of folks who abstained: Lisa, Marcia, Ann, John, Bill, Caroline, Tony, John, Anthony, Tony, and John. That is kind of my brief review, but all of you had a chance to or many of you had a chance to attend, see, a summary, watch it on YouTube. I want to open this up for other comments in terms of, what else would you have highlighted that happened at this particular meeting? now I'm getting the panel view. I'm looking for hands. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. My summary was fabulous. I see Rita, I see Daniel. Okay, so Rita, you go.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the last meeting. I'm starting to think that the committee, and not everyone on the committee, there's definitely some people who are very, very productive and concerned about what is going on. But I'm starting to think of the committee as a real roadblock to anything getting changed. There are some, so it goes from one extreme, the people who are what I will call unproductive, are there's a group of people, 3 or 4 people on the committee who are completely disengaged. They're just there, taking seats, right? And they're not questioning, not asking anything. They're just going along with whatever. And then there's 1 or 2 persons who are openly hostile to the process, to any sort of change, to any sort of public participation. And I'm just like, how can we? I'm just having a real problem with the committee. I mean, conservatively, we could let the committee go on and vote those 1 or 2 people who are representatives of the town council out next term so that they don't get back on the committee next time. But then I'm like, maybe we should start issuing motions to kick people off the committee, because it's really disruptive. It's unproductive. It feels like an attempt to, they're just going through the motions.
Okay.
And then go ahead.
No, I'm just giving chance other people to speak.
Sorry. Yeah. My last option is the nuclear bomb, which is to vote to have a mayor and disband the whole committee and start the process all over again.
Okay, so
those are my thoughts. Sorry.
And so, no, that's great. So your thoughts, you're commenting on the process itself rather than the content of the meeting, but the process itself and kind of people's various levels of engagement and their willingness to consider new ideas and change. And for you, that brings it to thinking more clearly that perhaps a mayor would allow more openness to new ideas. So I just.
Well, the mayor option being a way to disband the committee, because not having read the procedures, I don't know how else to disband the committee.
Okay. Daniel, thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I agree with a lot of what Rita said. My thoughts that I was going to mention is just the format of it. Is a little bit, I feel like every meeting seems to have like a different type of format to it. This one, they kind of went through or started to go through at least piece by piece. And then I think either it wasn't explained well at the beginning or I don't know what, but it ended up being like the whole time was basically taken up on like 2 or 3 items, and it kept jumping back and forth instead of having sort of one discussion and then moving on to the next. So it seemed like it was very like discombobulated. And then it was kind of disappointing to see the feeling that the public weren't given much option to participate, and the whole thing with the chat and everything there. So I don't know. It was definitely very interesting. And then the whole like straw poll at the end was a bit disheartening. And that was like, I don't know, a brilliant move for those who want to keep things the same. And that was kind of a disappointing blow, at least for me to see.
Got it. Thank you, Daniel. I think I've got Ilana and then Sarah. Ilana, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Sorry, slow. Sorry. So question for Rita. I think you answered this, but are you saying that you prefer a mayor, or you just think you're leaning that way because that's the way to change the committee makeup?
It's the way to change the committee makeup.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ilana. Sarah and then Deb.
Sure. Hi. So through the course of the last meeting, I thought it was useful to walk through the articles. I mean, even the conversation of, are we the town, the city known as the town of Watertown, that was brought up, not resolved, So walking through all the different, piece by piece, all the small issues, I think that was really productive. I did not like the fact that Councillor Woodland pushed for the straw poll at the end, and it got completely crazy out of hand. Like, wait, what are we voting on? Who's voting on what? Then he started the roll call and was like, wait, what's the vote? What are we voting on here? And the thing about that was, we're not ready for that decision. And so the chat, which Mark keeps wanting to shut down, but people keep chatting because it's the only way we can have sort of communication with it. The chat saying, hey, the public hasn't even voiced our had any input on any of these ideas yet. So how can we know? And I had a sidebar. I sent off a long email to Kenny, and I've been back and forth with him, like 5 different very long messages back and forth. But I mean, what I've been saying is, how can we possibly have this whole committee, which another point is that it's just way too big, but that's definitely another point. How can this whole committee know right now whether we want a town manager version of government or B, a mayoral? Because we're already hearing that there's so many gray areas. There is strong town manager, weak mayor, this, that. And it's like, how can we possibly get to that vote until we know what it would look like? And we don't know what it's going to have to look like until we know what problems we're addressing. So it's just, it just seemed very roundabout and sort of unproductive. And the thing that really concerns me, and this kind of gets to Rita's point also about the committee, from anybody who's been involved in Watertown politics in the schools or in any other issues over the years, things get polarized really quickly. So it becomes us and them. You get 2 camps, you turn into a battle, you have sort of opposite sides of things. And I saw that starting at the last meeting, and I think that's a dangerous way to go. I think we've got to be really careful about that, because the whole idea here is to try to get all of Watertown to weigh in on where the charter is going and how the charter should be changed. So I was very uncomfortable about the straw poll. That's my take.
Thank you, Sarah. I've got Deb, Marcia, Ilana, and then Nancy Hammond, just to let everybody know the order.
So I too was very uncomfortable with Ken's moves, and I felt like it was very divisive what he did, and I felt like he was purposefully being divisive. On the other hand, I feel his frustration, other people's frustration, that the committee is not doing any deliberation. All they're doing is getting information sort of handed down to them that they can chew on, but there's no sort of deliberation happening. I think there's probably common ground. I think there are issues. There may be differences. Ken might put a different amount of priority on things like accountability or transparency, but I think there is some common ground, and that the committee should be working to find and identify that common ground. And I don't know how to make that happen, but that's my point of view.
Great. Thank you, Deb. Marcia?
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with what everybody said, and to a certain point. I think that as a committee member, it's helpful for me to go through that document that the Collins Center came up with last week, that has annotations, that talks about how we can change little things, because those details are going to matter. And however, I do want to say that while I completely disagree with Councillor Woodland on what he thinks government is for. I feel like, I don't know if he's a libertarian or what, I don't know, but I feel like it's this sort of, balance the budget and, make a few general laws, and that's what we do, and that's it. And I feel like government is there for other reasons. So I really disagree with him. On the other hand, I do, like Deb and Ilana said, I do kind of understand, I do appreciate him for his transparency, because he is very open about what he thinks, and he tries to defend what he thinks, whether you agree with it or not. Whereas there are a lot of people who really aren't saying anything at all. And I feel like they're hiding behind an agenda, and I'm not getting a feel for that. So I think that a couple of things I think we should keep. We do need to know more information at this point before we really start to deliberate. And secondly, I think that I would like to see people a little more active on the other members, a little more active on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Ilana and then Nancy Hammett. You're on mute again, hon. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
I had turned it off. Okay. But I think, maybe not. I think that what a lot of us are getting at, it just feels like to me, and I'm not even on the committee, so Marcia and all can obviously comment more. It feels like the committee isn't really managing to work. They're getting stuck somewhere between, is it sort of a quick review? Are they really deliberating? Are they going piece by piece? Are they in the trees? Are they in the forest? How much is it public? How much? It just feels like the committee is not really working as a committee. And I hear what Rita's saying, as like that somehow it needs to regroup. I'm not sure that we want to necessarily force it to just blow up. And then if we did, we'd be stuck with, in that form. To do it that way would be, we'd be saying, oh, well, we want a mayor form of government, and maybe we do and maybe we don't. So I don't want to use that just as a way to change the committee, and then we're stuck with that other decision. But it does feel to me like the committee isn't working. And a few specific things on that. I think that the town council president has a conflict of interest built in, because the way it's set up, he's the person who sets the agendas for the meetings and is running the meetings, including deciding who to call on, both on the committee and from the public. But a large part of what they're considering is whether to keep this form of government, and his role is central in the current form of government. If we change it, his role would be changed a whole lot. And so the preservation of that or not is being considered when he's the one setting up, the agendas and who he's calling on. And I think that's a built-in conflict of interest. And I'm not blaming that on him. I think that's the way it was created for him. Just the fact that it's too big a committee to work well. It's not the fault of the people on there. That's the way the charter set it up. But I think that's a problem. And I think we need, like people said at the meeting and some other people have said here, we need to have more real dialogue about it, not just send in comments. We need to have a place where the public in particular, but I'm guessing even some of the people on the committee, need to be able to really discuss and have a back and forth, a real dialogue about some of the issues, instead of just, okay, I call on you, I read this comment, I read that question, and everybody just put something out there once, but you can't have a back and forth about it. And I think that's an ongoing problem. Maybe that's all except one specific thing that came up at the meeting I'll mention, which I think somebody already mentioned here as well, about this issue of taking the town of Watertown. Do we still need that in our name? And I'll repeat what I said at the meeting, and it may have gone by some people, whatever. People in general, a lot of people seem to be saying it's time to get rid of that. And I agree. I think that was a transitional thing we put in when, we were changing from a town to a city, and a lot of people weren't ready to let go of that image. And so people have said it's just time to let it go in terms of population, in terms of our budget. We don't need it anymore. We've outgrown it. But I raised another issue at the meeting, which is that a lot of our state laws apply differently to cities and to towns. And by calling us the town of Watertown and talking about town hall and the town and everything in the town councilors all the time, instead of city, a lot of people don't know that we are actually legally constituted as a city. And so people, both elected officials, some of our town employees, and I just did it there myself, city employees, thank you, and the public misapply or some of the rules and the laws and don't even realize that they're doing it, because they think they should be applying the rules that are for towns, and we're a city. And it just confuses people for no reason and creates problems. And I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilana. I've got Nancy and then Marcia and Deb, your hand is still up. Are you back in the queue or? Okay, great. So I've got Nancy, Hannah, and then Marcia again.
Thanks, Tia. I guess I share people's frustration with the quality of the debate that the current process is allowing. I do think it's useful to continue on with going through and hearing some input from the Collins Center on different sections. It's slow, but it's informative. I think Dan put up in the chat the link to the document that we should have had before the last meeting, if at all possible. So what I'm assigning myself the following task, and I invite others to do the same thing. I'm going to write to probably the committee, at least to Mark, but maybe the whole committee would be more useful, and just comment on the process specifically and say that it would be really useful to have had that document sooner. It would be really useful to have more concrete information about what topics are going to be talked about, and to recognize that this isn't going to go quickly. And therefore, I don't know if they really thought they'd get through the whole document the last time, or, but clearly not. It wouldn't be a very productive conversation if they had gotten all the way through to the end of the comments. So to just sort of be realistic about how long a conversation is going to take, Kenny won't like it, Mark might not like it, whatever. But so part one is to make specific recommendations. If you could let the public, know farther ahead of time what topics will be addressed, and provide any documents ahead of time so that we can be more effective in our comments and our participation. And then the second thing, I think, which goes to what I think we're talking about today in terms of organizing us as individuals to work with each other to come up with ideas. If it becomes clear that the conversation is going to be happening, whether the Charter Review Committee sets up to promote it or not, there's going to be a conversation. Wouldn't it be better to have it, through the process of those meetings, that there's going to be plenty of commentary in any event. It's not going to be possible to just shut down the conversation. I think might reduce the incentive to hurry through. So I'm speculating about that, but I think writing, all of us individually writing the Charter Review Committee and sharing our views about the process and making specific recommendations about how it might be better. And they're not going to all be the same recommendations, but at least we'll be offering some positive, concrete alternatives to what's happening. I think will be helpful.
Thank you, Nancy. And I just want to point out that Daniel's just posted in the chat a document to how you can contact the CRC. And just an additional comment is that, well, there is an information link on the CRC website. It is our understanding that only goes to Mark and not to the entire committee, and that you need to include the entire committee if you wish the entire committee to know your comment. So that's our understanding of the process. Marcia?
Yeah, I just want to second what Nancy said about, and I actually want to say a few things. Second, what Nancy said about about people writing, and Tony and Lisa, just tell me if I'm wrong, but if people write a letter and ask that it be put into the public record, it has to be put into the public record, right? And if you go and read at the meeting, is that true? Guys, is that true? Because I know
I would say, yeah, if you, generally anything that's said at the meeting or even emails that go around are part of a public record, but often unless you make a point of saying, please attach this to the minutes of the meeting, it might get overlooked, maybe not on purpose, but just not realizing that you want this statement attached. So that's never a bad idea.
Right. So one of the frustrations, as I'm sure you all feel, is the fact that we finally got them to set up this forum and the poll. And I've been asking for a month now, how am I going to see these? How are we going to see these? The subcommittee needs to see these answers. And I am just getting no response at all. So in lieu of that, I think that if you write to the, if you write and you say, I want this put into the record, if you notice, if you go on the website, there's something that says miscellaneous or something. And if you go on there, there's one letter from Rena Vaskin, because she wrote in and asked that it be read into the record. But, you know, in that way, you will get your comments in there, in the public, up on the website, because I'm not sure what else will happen. So I just say that's a really good idea to do. The other thing that I wanted to just address is, and, you know, Lisa and Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong too, but if we do decide to go to a mayor, the committee won't be broken up. It will just switch over to we have to sort of go to the state and ask for something or other. So I think the committee would stay the same. I don't think that would break it up. Although I do agree that could use that. But anyway, and then the other thing I just wanted to say is I had asked at the last meeting about doing this sort of government one-on-one meeting, so that we would do just with the public. And we had talked about it and I brought it up and people said, oh yeah, we'll do that. You know, if you guys can write and say you really want that, maybe it'll push them a little bit to do something like that, so we can have more of a public meeting like you guys are having here. Because I don't know if it's going to get done otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. We're coming into time for this block. Anne's posted a request for a comment. Alana, I see you've got a hand up. Are you willing to defer your comment, or we're kind of tight on this?
I'll be very quick. I believe what Marcia was just asking, the way I understood Michael saying about the committee is that if they want to go mayor route, they do have to totally reconstitute the committee.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's what I understood Michael Ward to say.
Okay, thank you. Anne, and you'll be our final comment.
Hi, everyone. I think that we have to do something about a commission if we want to change to a mayor. But I want to reiterate what several folks have said, which is you need to put your feelings in writing and you need to send it to the whole committee. Since the poll and the comments have gone live, we haven't seen anything and we haven't heard anything, and we've asked repeatedly. So we don't know. I was disappointed that a straw poll was called for, because even though we've had some comment from the public, I haven't seen significant input from the public. So I felt like it was really premature for that reason, you know, in large part. And I am doing my best to ask probing questions that, you know, can provide insight into, you know, how we can strengthen our town government. And, you know, for me, I said it at the very beginning of charter, accountability is a huge part of why I wanted to be on the charter review committee, because I think Watertown needs more accountability. And in my experience talking to many town councilors over, you know, a decade, has been that they feel like they don't have enough power. And, you know, the town manager holds a lot of power. And then the town manager is, you know, not accountable to the public, I guess. So, which we're pursuing that, but we need support. And I think putting it in writing and sending it to the whole committee is important, because I have no idea how many people have responded to the poll. I have no idea how many people have sent comments in. Very early on, I asked for an email address at Watertown government to say that we could publicize, so that we could say write to charter at Watertown, you know, .ma- or .gov-ma, and to my knowledge, we still don't have one. We have a form that you can fill out that requires name, address, email, phone number, that I think is a lot for people. Whereas if we could just give them an email address, more people would just send an email and sign it. So anyway, we are trying, and we appreciate everything Watertown Forward is doing. I mean, I do personally. I think several people on the committee do, but individually, as many people as possible. And if you can ask like one more neighbor or friend or resident to send an email to the entire Charter Review Committee, they don't have to be, long, but say, these are my concerns, and we need more accountability, or describe the issues that you think are important. We need that support because we are I think we're on the precipice of, diverging here, because if we get a straw poll and not, a majority says we want we want to remain as we are, then we're going to end up saying that the resources have to be, Collins Center time and resources have to be dedicated towards, pursuing what we now know a majority of the committee wants, which is to remain the same. So.
And this is great. It's a great segue into our next section. Is there any final comment you'd like to make?
No, that's it. Thanks for indulging me. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Sure. And I just invite anyone to email me also if you have questions, or if you have a question for the FAQ. We have asked folks to send those directly to me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And I heard a lot on, clearly the process, the ability to comment and participate, a sense that the move to a straw poll was divisive, that, kind of some issues in terms of the structure of the committee, and some great ideas about how to participate. And that's the focus of what today's meeting is about. And I want to turn this over to Janice to get us to this next piece where we can work concretely on some of this stuff. And there are resources at the end of today's session about how you can bring ideas forward. So Janice, I'm going to send this over to you.
Thanks, Tia. So I want to echo the sentiment. Thank you very much for all of your thoughts. It's really motivating to hear all of your views. And I think it's high time we caused some good trouble. So we're going to transition into the second half of our meeting today, which is really all about dialogue, public input, and how, Watertown Forward can provide some structured opportunities and motivation for people to take some of these conversations further offline. I think it's really important, and invite your neighbors. Who else can join this conversation? Community is strength. And I think we have a lot of really amazingly smart people in this group just here today. So let's see if we can grow that. So as we mentioned, the recent CRC meetings have really stressed the importance of public input at this juncture. And it was my takeaway from that straw poll from certain members, from some of the abstentions. I think, some members just didn't feel prepared because they didn't have enough public input yet, and I'm sure there were other reasons mixed in there as well. But I think there's just a need, there's a gap right now. We don't have enough understanding of what the public wants. So we're going to cultivate some of that today, some opportunities there. Last time we started this Good Trouble talk, which was inspired by a John Lewis quote. And today we're going to just basically build off of what we started last time. For those of you who weren't here, we ended up breaking out into some small breakout groups where we just brainstormed some ideas and some language around how we might like to see the charter change. And from those conversations, Watertown Forward put together sort of a master list called the Platform of Ideas. And we took all of the ideas that we compiled for the last charter chat, including some ideas that were brought up in the 6 previous chats or the 5 previous chats, into one document that was broken out into 7 main categories. As you can see on this slide here, perfect timing, Emily. So these are the 7 categories. And then underneath each one of these, there's a number of bullets that are the ideas that we have come up with collectively. And I think Dan will, if he hasn't already, my Yep, there it is. Perfect. Dan put the link to the full document, which has all the bullets. We are going to be using this today in our breakout groups as a guide. So if you want, you can download it, or you can just go directly to the website and look for it. You don't need to have it. It's just helpful to have on hand. And let's see. So obviously, we're not going to break out into 7 groups today. I think that's a little bit too many, but we're going to tackle the first 4, which I think really houses the bulk of the conversations that we've had so far. So the first 4 groups that are in bold will be the breakout groups today. And we're going to do something a little different. Instead of just having you randomly assigned, you will get to select which group you want to attend today and have more of a focused discussion. So the way to do that is pretty straightforward. Before we start breaking out into groups, I'll explain how that's going to work. And then Emily is going to hang back if anybody gets lost or has questions. There will be a facilitator in each group that will just help keep us on task. This is just a brief overview of what we are going to be discussing in those groups. So first, we'll again identify somebody who can be a spokesperson when we come back to the large group at the end, who can just give a brief 1-minute elevator speech of what we discussed and some of the takeaways. And we will review those bulleted items that we have, that we listed from the last chat and previous chats. And the facilitator will read those aloud so that if anybody didn't get a chance to download the platform of ideas, they won't be at a loss. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we might build off of the ideas that we already created. Do we want to change the language? Do we want to add anything to an idea? What might you be curious about for somebody who's just jumping on board and feels a little bit behind? And what else would you like to see added into that category? So this is going to be, and this will be again by category. So it'll be a little bit more specific than last time. Last time was more broad. And then before we end, we're curious to see if there would be any energy behind taking these conversations offline. So we'll sort of do a little brief informal poll at the end of our breakout sessions and say who would like to meet after today and maybe continue these discussions. And then we'll share contact info within those smaller breakout groups. And we'll hopefully identify a point person that might be able to say, hey, now that we have everyone's email, I'm going to send out an email to everybody and I'll be the contact person for the balance of power discussion group, if you want to call it that. And who else might you invite again, and then what resources might you need? Watertown Forward we have a ton of information. Our ed committee is working really, really hard at creating a lot of amazing material. And so we're here for you as a resource. You don't need to use us certainly, but so Counselor Lisa Feltner and Marcy Merningham have volunteered to be the point people for Watertown Forward. If any of these conversations that happen offline need some help or support, you can contact them directly and Dan will put their emails in the chat. And then again, when we come back to a large group, we'll reiterate that. All right, that was very fast because I want to make sure we get to the groups. And so the logistic way to do this is at the bottom of your screen, you should see once Emily creates the breakout groups, you should see a little icon pop up that says breakout room. It's not there yet, don't worry. And then once that's on the bottom of your screen, you will click breakout room and those 4 options will pop up. And then you click the one you want to join and it'll say join if all the stars align. Now, if that doesn't happen, don't worry, we'll fix it. Marcy has volunteered to work some magic.
All right, so if we're ready to go, I will open the rooms and then you should be able to choose one of those 4 that you're interested in and then join that room. Again, this is our first time doing it, so bear with us, but hopefully this works.
So if you hover over the number next to the group, you'll see a join option.
hope you had a good discussion. We'll hear more about that in a moment. What we're going to do next is hear briefly from a spokesperson from each group. And what we'd like to hear in about a minute or so is one or two key takeaways from your discussion, some of the major points that you discussed that would be useful for the rest of us to hear. What, if any, follow-up plan you have next? If there's some continuity after today that you'd like to let us know about, maybe people would like to join with you in that. And if there is a person in that group who would be the contact so that we know who's going to continue and how other people can reach out if they'd like to be part of that discussion. And I think we'll just simply go in the order that we had numbered on the slide. So the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice group would talk first. That was the group I think, Tia, you facilitated. So is there a spokesperson from that group?
Tiffany, you are up.
Yes, and Larry, remind me, just a couple of minutes, correct?
Yeah, just take a couple minutes, give us some of the highlights and what, if anything, is the plan for next.
Sure. So just to recap, there were the 4 points from last time that we came up with for this group: interest in forming a community advisory board to interface with police, a need for diversity officer, formation of a human rights commission, and having diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice embedded in the preamble vision. So we had a great discussion. And I think we really wanted to narrow in on, the charter review is a place to start baking this in, and how specifically can we be most impactful in baking this in when we talk about practices and culture, hiring, when we talk about what kind of diversity we want to see in thought, but also representation in people's race or social, socioeconomic, or even neurodiversity, and all those kind of things. We also talked about how being very explicit in what we mean by diversity and representation, and how outside of the charter, what does it look like in how we continue to work with all these other groups that broke out today. It was really something we all kind of looked at. We can't just put it in a box, this diversity thing, but it really needs to be integrated into each of the conversations that we're all having today. So, the working group will be great for that, and trying to integrate that in. We really want to move forward with specific ways to narrow in on this explicitly with the CRC committee and the charter, but also when we look at hiring practice in the police department policies, school policies, town policies, all of those things that work in this city. I'm sorry, I've been using town, in this city. We really want to see where we can start putting pressure on having this be as important as the financial success that the city is hanging its hat on with a few of the town council people. So we'd love to kind of have the realization and awareness be brought in that this is equally, if not more important than if we, have that financial success.
Great. Thanks for that, Tiffany. And is there a plan for anything after today? And is there a contact person from your group if people want to?
Tyler.
Tyler. There we go.
Yes, there she is. Okay. Sorry, gallery view, so I lost her. Tyler will be the point person, and we want to have, like I said, a continuing conversation about what exactly it looks like in the charter, where can we make those changes, and then also moving outward.
Excellent. Okay, thanks very much for that. And anybody who's interested in following up who wasn't in that group, feel free to get in touch with Tyler. The second group was transparency, evaluation, and disclosure. I facilitated that one. We had a small but mighty group, had a really rich discussion. And I think Marcy is going to share what we discussed and what's next. Marcy, you're on, and unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm taking notes at the same time, folks, so I won't chew gum, but I'm typing. The platform of ideas covered a lot of this. I think the one issue, and I won't read through them all, I encourage you to look at those, but we did talk about most of those bullet points there regarding access, metrics, how narrow or wide, how narrow or wide is the scope of accountability? It's not just the money, it's also other things, qualitative concerns having to do with environmental, social, and governance matters. We talked about the fact that there needs to be far better communications, that the town lives in a bygone world, that we don't live in that world anymore. It's a lot of little fiefdoms, and there's very little knowledge of what's going on. I raise the issue and keep promoting, the incredible work that's going on these days in open government. This is from 11 years ago. There are a lot of tools out there to create a more accountable system. And there are also many models of how to measure performance, both not just financial, but what is often now called integrated reporting. Spent a lot of time talking about the sort of non-responsiveness of government and the fact that there appears to be a resistance to change, that the level of curiosity is rather low, and the investment in the status quo is high. We touched it toward the end. We talked about the workforce and the fact that so much of the workforce is unionized. And anytime a matter comes up and the council decides to go into executive session, or something gets passed to the town council, the lawyer, one never really knows what is happening. So I think we need to acknowledge, and I know that Dan D'Amico is beginning to look into workforce composition and demographics kinds of issues, which I think will be very useful to us. The topic that we did not get into, and I think this is a very important one in thinking about transparency and disclosure, and that has to do with conflicts of interest. There appear to be a number of conflicts of interest that are riddled throughout the system. One of the things that a platform or more transparent government does that takes seriously its openness and accountability is sort of flag those potential conflicts of interest before they become a problem.
Great. So Marcy, let me just ask, because people who want to talk about that next, about all the things you mentioned, can find a way to do that. So what's the next plan for people who want to talk further about transparency, evaluation, and disclosure with this group? I think Chris offered something. I wonder if you want to mention it, or I could.
Why don't you do it? Because
okay.
I was busy taking.
So we had Chris Penland in our group, and we're grateful for that, because Chris is married to Ann Fitzpatrick, who's on the CRC. So he brought a lot of interesting insights to our discussion, and he offered to lead further discussion after today for people who'd like to dig more into this, all the issues that Marcy raised and other ones that people would like to pursue. So Chris, I think we have his email in the chat, and if it isn't in there, we'll put it in there. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Marcy. And now let's go to the next group, which was our third group, which talked about balance of power, capacity, legislative, executive, and Janice was a facilitator. We've got couple more minutes for both of these, so we'll just see if we can get through the high points and what's next. Somebody.
Yeah, so I think I'm reporting out.
Okay, Lisa.
Sorry, Lisa.
No, that's okay. I know we're short on time, so I'll just jump in. We mostly focused on the position of the president of the council, because people felt that hadn't received much discussion yet. And some opinions were shared about whether that should remain as a at-large voted position, given the amount of power, acknowledging that the town council president does have more power maybe than people realize, and thinking about all the ways that is true. But also in the way that that position might be hampered, because it's not a full-time position. It requires a lot of time, a lot of responsibility, where you also sit with a school committee. Some folks felt there may be benefit to having that position chosen or elected by the town council once the election's over, and you have nine sitting councilors that they elect a president. Because if you could rotate, maybe it changes every 2 years or every 4 years, to have the potential town manager not be quite so comfortable with dealing with the same person year after year, in that familiarity and how they communicate. But at the same time, well as that turn into a popularity contest, there is some history in other places as well as here in Watertown. The school committee can often get contentious among the members because those school committee members do elect the school committee president, although that is a 4-year term, not a 2-year term. And that's mostly what we talked about. I don't know, do you want me to share more about the position itself? But
okay.
then we got cut off, so we weren't able to share phone numbers or emails because the chat was closed down because we had a notice about the breakout room ending soon. And so Janice is following up on that.
Great, thank you for that. And our last group for today is communication responsiveness. Alice, you're the facilitator, and is there a spokesperson for that group?
Yeah, Rachel's our spokesperson.
Hi, everyone. In our group, not surprisingly, communication was tied to all of the topics that you all were discussing in your group. So I think the biggest theme of that is that communication is really woven into everything. So if we try to simplify it, it was basically building off of the bullets from previous meetings and looking at communication going out and communication coming in. So from the kind of going out aspect, we focused on the collaboration component and trying to require a collaborative environment for decision-making, making that more explicit, that it's not just one individual making the decision, that collaboration needs to be really clear and required. Also, that tying in with the balance, that ties in with the balance of power discussion. We also talked about having access to when you think about the evaluation criteria of the town manager and documents that the town council puts together on that. That's another good example of just communication going out, trying to make that clear, understandable, easy to access, and building off of that as an example in the future. But then flipping to collecting information. One of the bullets from previous meetings here has been requiring public forums for the town manager and council president. We'd like to expand that to be more for any elected official, that there be public forums required so that they are clear to collect that information and then share it and work from it. And I think the last theme in all our communication was trying to build a culture of being solution driven. That we're not in the blame game. We're not trying to have this be on one person's shoulders, but that all communication for Watertown, and maybe this fits in the preamble, is just about being solution oriented. And if a solution exists, then working to reassess that solution, for example, but trying to be proactive and thinking forward instead of being defensive.
Thank you, Rachel. It sounds like a very good and rich discussion. And what, if any, plans after today?
So Deborah and I are interested in continuing the conversation. We didn't raise our hand to take on something specific at the moment, but I think we both volunteered to be able to move the conversation forward.
Great. Okay. So stay tuned. There may be more to come for that one for others interested. I'm going to ask Marcy and Lisa if you could put your emails in the contact information in the chat, because Marcy, as the chair of the Ed Committee, is willing to help any people after today with some content that they've been putting together around good government. And Lisa has often offered to be a liaison for any people who want to talk with her about their access to the Charter Review Committee. So they will be available via email for that. We're going to run over about 5 minutes, so apologize for that. If people have to go, thank you for coming today. If you can hang in for another 5 minutes or so, we're going to do a couple things to wrap up. I think, Emily, we'd maybe look at the slide, the channels of communication slide for people to be able to get in touch with people after today. Do we have a slide for that?
You should be
There
able
we
to see
go.
it. Yep. Okay.
Okay, so we've heard reference to this before, but here it is. It'll be recorded today. It's on our website. All the people you can contact, cut and paste, make one big email, and you can send it off, and everybody will get their own copy of what you want to say. Is there anything else, Janice, that we'd want to say about that?
I think you've covered it. I think just reiterating that if you're going to provide some feedback via email, make sure you email individual counselors, every individual, versus the main email that's on the website.
Okay, thanks. The final thing we'd like to do today is to just check with you about how all this worked. And instead of doing an evaluation poll, we have 2 questions. I don't know if we have this. Yeah, they're on a slide. We'd ask you to just respond in the chat, 1 in your answer and 2 in your answer. And the questions are, what has been, whoops, am I, okay, sorry, I don't know how that happened. What's been particularly useful and or worth continuing in these charter chats? We'd love to hear from you about that. And 2, what will help make future chats even more valuable so that we can incorporate that into what we do the next time. And the next chat will be 2 weeks from now. So just take a moment, if you would, to put your responses to that in the chat, and then Emily will say a few final words, and we will thank you all for coming, and see you next time. So maybe Emily, as people give them a minute to type in their comments into the chat, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll just play a little music. People can take some time to think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
You shake, we all shake a little bit. I fall, you fall, we all fall a little bit. So show me what you're made of, 'cause you know I don't wanna shake alone. Yeah, show me what you're made of, 'cause you know I don't wanna fall Let's forget our past, all our lies, all our mistakes. I'll do whatever it takes. I just wanna learn every ounce of you I the fact that no one is a stranger. Patience, no one is a stranger. I wanna it's not my way. I just wanna learn. I just wanna burn every ounce of you I can. Patience, anger, the fact that no one is a stranger. Patience, anger, no one is a stranger.
All right. Thank you all so much for your comments. Keep putting them in the chat as we wrap up today. But I wanted to end our charter chat today with a few upcoming events. As you can see on the screen, the next charter review committee meeting is Tuesday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. And then the following Sunday, March 7th, will be the next charter chat. We also have there's also a preamble subcommittee meeting on Monday, February 22nd. That's tomorrow at 5:30. And then a communication subcommittee meeting on Thursday, March 8th. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to email us at forwardwatertown@gmail.com. You can also visit our webpage at watertownforward.org. We have the resources that we shared today, such as the platform of ideas and ways that you can email the CRC members. And we will definitely take your feedback and your comments from today's charter chat and incorporate them into our next charter chat. So thank you again so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Can you just confirm the communication subcommittee meeting is on Monday, March 8th, or is it on Thursday, March 11th or 12th, whatever that Thursday is?
So the next meeting is actually this Thursday, on the 26th at 6 p.m. We're doing it every 2 weeks on Thursday.
Thursday's
6
25th.
p.m. Okay. Let's join us.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you so much for that update, Marcia. Great. Any other last?
Yes.
Yeah.
Quick. Now that it's getting later, well, and it's nice to be able to go out and do something outdoors on Sundays. Can we maybe make these meetings start later on Sunday?
That's a great question, and something that we'll definitely take into consideration with the charter chat design team and as we move forward. So we'll definitely get back to you on that, but I can't make any promises without talking to our team. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Maybe get out and enjoy a little bit of that sunshine while it's still there.
Thanks, everyone.